Hello my people. It's been way too long, but I've been working on a lot of changes to the channel and I just wanted to bring them all to you in a complete package, you know? I got a new mic. The audio sounds way clearer now in my opinion. Like I used to use this old headset, but it just really wasn't working for me, and besides the headset broke, so I kinda need this new mic. I also got a new background for the video presentations. It's from the League of Legends website. Don't tell Riot that I borrowed it. I made a new opening, which you'll see soon enough. I've updated the thumbnails, I've updated the YouTube cover art, and lastly, just look at how fucking sexy I look. Holy shit. Cat Crossing. She's a personal friend of mine and she just did a great job all around. Like honestly, I love it. Thank you so much. Anyways, it's time for a fresh start. Welcome to Champion Analysis. Okay, so I actually had a rough time thinking about a good intro that relates to the topic of today's video, which is why I kind of just spoke about the changes to the video format. But self-criticism aside, I felt really conflicted with this episode. This theory is my favorite to talk about, but it fits in perfectly with one of my most despised champions in League of Legends. ZZZ, the champion that is essentially a big middle finger to anyone trying to have fun or even participate in the game. You like shooting things? Deleted. You like fighting people up close and personal? Can't hit what you can't see? You like being a massive tanky wall? Deuces, my guy. I'ma go chill with whatever remains of your ADC after my ult. Zed is one hell of an assassin, and although I hate him as a game character, I gotta admit that he is one of the more interesting and relatable lore characters you'll find in the game. Relatable? You might be questioning? Well, stick around as we examine Zed's lore in order to figure out what exactly is fueling his search for power. First, let's take a look at Zed's lore. Before being the Ninja Master of Shadows, Zed was an orphan. That's not good. He was taken in by a great ninja master who decided to train young Zed. This ninja master became Zed's only parental figure. He was Zed's new father, and Zed was eager to prove himself to him. Therefore, Zed trained hard to overcome any obstacle to win his master's approval. But Zed's new brother proved to be one obstacle he couldn't overcome alone. Only one other student appeared to be Zed's equal, the master's son, Shen. It seemed Zed could never win the favor of the master, as every match between the rivals ended in a draw. Shen isn't your ordinary brother / rival, by the way. Shen is pretty much the avatar of Runeterra. Although his birth within the most revered of Ionian clans marked him as destined to serve, it was his iron will that made Shen the chosen leader of a shadowed order. Wielding his spirit blade, the symbol of his duty, as well as his connection to the spirit realm, Shen roams both worlds, unerringly drawn to any place where one side threatens to overwhelm the other. Zed is just another ninja, or at least he was at the time. He definitely needed something more if he was going to beat Shen. Frustrated and jealous, he sought an advantage. The young ninja ventured into a sealed part of the clan's temple, where he found an ornate, foreboding box. Sensing the dark knowledge within, Zed knew he should not open it, but he peered inside nonetheless. In an instant, shadows touched his mind, revealing techniques that had long been hidden. Armed with these new forbidden techniques, Zed was finally able to beat Shen, but was then banished by his master after his display. Zed's rivalry with Shen cost him his new home, his second chance at life. Now, rivalries can be quite healthy and bring out the best in people. My best friend happens to be my rival actually, and although I hate his fucking guts because of all the trash talking he does, he still motivates me to get better, whether it's in League or at the gym. However, Zed is bringing more than just his skill to the rivalry. You see, Zed doesn't see this as just another rivalry. Zed believes that if he does not beat Shen, then he will lose his master, just like he lost his parents. Does that seem a bit too far-fetched for you? Well, let's approach this story with some individual psychology, a theory created by the psychologist Alfred Adler. Adler proposed that we are all born with creative power, the ability to shape our own behavior and personality. With this power, we can set our final goal in life between 4 and 5 years of age. Of course, a 5-year-old's mind isn't sophisticated enough to make elaborate goals such as going to college, but Adler meant that they can make broad goals that can later be refined to be specific goals for when the child is old enough to decide. For example, a very broad goal a child could set would be wanting to help people, which could then manifest itself by the child becoming a doctor. Adler's theory uses a teleological approach, meaning that all actions can be understood only as part of the person's final goal. So every decision we make is in some way helping us reach our final goal one way or another. These decisions we make are the result of 2 different types of motivation: success and superiority. If you do a good job as a parent, then your child will most likely strive for success, which Adler defined as success for the betterment of all humanity. If the child strives for success, then their final goal will most likely involve something that will benefit other people. They think about the needs of the community over themselves. Going back to our previous example, a child with a final goal of helping people would most likely be striving for success, but I doubt this is the case for Zed. No, I believe Zed has a different final goal in mind, a goal that is powered by his strive for superiority instead of success. So what does it mean to strive for superiority? Adler defined it as striving for personal superiority at the expense of others. People motivated by superiority are people who only value what is beneficial for themselves. This can be either obvious or hidden. An obvious example would be like robbers or con artists or murderers, etc. They seek to benefit despite the fact that they need to hurt people to get said benefits. Hidden examples are those people that like to gain your trust in hopes of it paying off for them in the future. They make themselves likable to other people but don't actually care for what happens to them. All they seek is self-benefit, whether it be through stuff like reputation or opportunity. It's like doing stuff so that people can like you, but you don't care enough to do beyond the bare minimum. Sure, you're not hurting anyone, but you don't really care what happens to them in the end. And that's just one hidden example. Now, Zed is not doing the bare minimum. His motivation is pretty obvious. Zed's entire discipline revolves around overpowering your opponents with overwhelming force. He defied his clan and master, casting off the balance and discipline that had shackled him all his life. Now this shows that Zed favors superiority, but if you can recall from our definition, Zed has to be doing this at the expense of others. There's no accounts of Zed straight up being a murderer or a thief or anything like that, but Zed did grow a desire for more power after being banished from the clan by his father. Humiliated, the young ninja wandered for years. His bitterness turned to ambition, and he began to train others in the style of the shadows. However, Zed needed the black box that gave him his shadow powers, and in order to do that, he needed to return to his former home, and Zed was willing to do anything to retrieve it. As his power grew, so did his circle of followers, but he knew that without the box, his techniques would never be perfect. Zed saw that his students were now an army, and led them back to the temple to claim his prize. In the end, Zed ordered his army to slaughter the master's students and took over the temple. All Zed cared about was power, and he was willing to kill everyone from his former home in order to obtain it. That is benefit at the expense of others, striving for superiority. There are also earlier signs of his strive for superiority when you examine his rivalry with Shen. It wasn't one where he sought to learn from his battles with Shen. He wanted to overpower him. That's why he got his shadow techniques in the first place. But what if I told you there was something else Zed cared about more than power? Deep down, Zed longs for something else that he is not aware of, which is the case for most people striving for superiority. Zed wants the love and security he never had as a child. People that strive for superiority are mostly motivated by feelings of inferiority. You ever heard of the term inferiority complex? This comes straight from Adlerian theory. When children are neglected by their caretakers, they begin to develop feelings of inferiority. Those feelings of inferiority leads these children to develop an unconscious final goal, a final goal that ends up being fueled by striving for superiority. Let me explain without the textbook jargon. According to Adlerian theory, neglected children tend to develop feelings of inferiority because of the lack of attention and care their caretakers give them. As a result, these children begin to think the neglect is because of their own self, that they are inferior in some way, which is why they are being neglected. Thus, their final goal becomes to find a way to get rid of this inferiority so they can gain their caretaker's attention. What the inferiority is and the way they attempt to get rid of it is unique to the person, but it is always unconscious, meaning the person is not aware of what they are trying to really do with their actions. It is possible that Zed, after being orphaned, developed feelings of inferiority, possibly blaming himself for the tragic situation he was put in. Those feelings resulted in Zed's thirst for power. Consciously, he believes strength is important for surviving in this world, but unconsciously, Zed believes having great power is the only way to get the attention he needed from his parents. Think about it. Zed was picked up by a ninja master who sought to train him to become a great ninja. Zed finally had a father figure, and that father figure, in a sense, was teaching him how to be stronger physically through training. Zed was getting the parental attention he needed through his ninja training. Obviously, somewhere in his mind he connected training and attention. Thus, his final goal was solidified. He made sure he could become the strongest ninja, so he wouldn't lose another parent. That is why Shen was a big problem to him. No matter how hard he tried, he could never best Shen. Any attempt would end up in a draw. Shen was the only threat to Zed's relationship with his new father. That's why he was so determined to find a way to beat him. That's why he let the shadows consume him. Zed knew the darkness that lurked in the box, but also understood it held power. Power he can use to finally beat Shen. And Zed makes it clear as day that all he wants is to keep his master's attention when he finally beats Shen. Now armed with a secret edge, he challenged Shen, and this time he defeated the master's son. He expected praise and recognition in his moment of victory, but somehow the master knew Zed had used forbidden ways, and banished him. Right there, he expected praise and recognition from his master. This line tells us what Zed prioritizes with not just this match, but with all of his matches against Shen. He wants to keep the attention from his master, because he believes if he is not strong enough, then his master will abandon him, just like his parents did. However, his worst fear became reality when his new father banished him anyway. Once again, Zed was abandoned. So what did Zed do? Humiliated, the young ninja wandered for years. His bitterness turned to ambition, and he began to train others in the style of the shadows. Now that Zed lost the attention he wanted, Zed decided to get it from a new source. Through his power, he found people who could fill that empty void. People who would look up to him and value him. Sure, consciously Zed wants to defy the teachings of the master that abandoned him, but unconsciously Zed is fighting against his feelings of inferiority by finding people who would praise his strength. But the most definitive proof is when Zed returned to his old home for the black box. Get ready, cause this part is quite the read. At the gates, he was surprised to find the old master waiting, receiving Zed and his disciples as if they were welcomed guests. The old man laid his sword at Zed's feet, declaring that he had failed Zed as a master. By banishing his former student, the master had doomed Zed to the shadows, instead of leading him to a balanced path. The old man implored Zed to enter the temple, destroy the box, and lead his followers to balance. The dark ninja followed the master inside. Moments later, the assembled ninjas heard Zed cry out in pain. Mysteriously, he emerged unscathed, and threw the severed head of the master at Shen's feet. Screaming in rage, Zed commanded his followers to slaughter the master's students and seize the box. When Zed saw that his old master wanted to accept him back, Zed willingly followed him. I'm willing to bet that at this moment, Zed was actually going to abandon the idea of going to war with his former home, because he got back what he wanted, his master's recognition. Sure, he wasn't proud of Zed's obsession with shadows, but he offered to help Zed and his students go back to the path of balance. To Zed, his master still acknowledges his potential, which eliminates Zed's feelings of inferiority. But as we all know, Zed ended up carrying out his original plan. Honestly, what happened within the room between Zed and his master is still a huge mystery that people still theorize to this day. But if I had to guess, I'd say that the scream from Zed wasn't from physical pain. Instead, I'd say it was emotional pain. Zed's former master probably never planned to accept Zed back, and instead thought that Zed was too far gone, so he attempted to eliminate Zed. However, Zed got the better of him and killed his old master in self-defense. Zed then came to the realization that his only real father in this world, the man that all he sought from was his approval, in the end wanted to abandon him again, this time permanently. Zed, distraught, frustrated, enraged, let out an emotional scream. The world truly can be a cruel place. But isn't this a little odd? Zed's obsession with power is from him fearing the loss of his new family. He believes that if he is not strong enough, then he will be abandoned again. But I doubt his master fed this idea to him directly. I mean, the master took Zed in when he was a young orphan and decided to raise and train him. The master also emphasizes the importance of balance, so he most likely had talks with Zed about Zed's power hunger and offered his own guidance. The master doesn't sound like an asshole that would tell Zed that he would abandon him if he slipped up. So why does Zed firmly believe that he needs to be stronger if it's simply not true? Well, people aren't guided by reality. People are guided by how they perceive reality. If you walk into a neighborhood you perceive to be dangerous, then you will react as if it was dangerous. You might clench your bag or constantly be looking over your shoulder, or constantly look around you as you walk even though the neighborhood could be one of the safest neighborhoods on the planet. You don't walk carefully because of the reality of the situation. You walk carefully because of your perception of the reality. At least according to Hans Weihinger, a German philosopher who Adler borrowed this concept from. Adler incorporated this into his theory as fictions. Fictions are subjective perceptions of reality and expectations of the future. Adler proposed that the personal fictions are what motivate people to pursue their final goals even more. Fictions can be rigid, and one simple conversation will not help break it, especially if trauma is what developed the fiction in the person. The idea that Zed needs to be stronger in order to maintain his relationships is his own personal fiction that motivates him to continue to strive for superiority, to gain as much power as he can. Zed's story is a tragic tale of the consequences of neglectful parenting. Well, consequences if your world involves supernatural ninja arts. But all of this could have been avoided if Zed just had the parents he needed as a kid, and if the master had the patience to guide Zed away from his thirst for power instead of just banishing him. Remember that word relatable? I'm sure we've all wanted some sort of approval or praise from our parents for things we've done, for things we've accomplished, for who we really are inside. It really makes you realize how important caretakers are to nurturing the minds of the next generation, regardless of what world they're in. That was some pretty heavy stuff for the first day back, huh? But you know me, I'm not afraid to bring out the heavy feels for you guys. But don't worry, I don't plan on making you run out of tissue boxes in the near future. Speaking of the future, after thinking things through and speaking with my professors, I've developed new ideas for different formats to add onto my channel. Don't worry, I won't be changing champion analysis anytime soon. These are just some ideas for attracting new people so that they're more willing to join us with the main show. My episodes are really long after all, so I can see why people would be less inclined to stay, which just makes those of you who do stay for the whole duration all the more special. So thank you, and I hope the new plans will definitely psych you out.